Hello, founders. Thanks for joining us in this video. I'm here with Tony Teshara. Tony has just recently joined the startups.com community, has made an immediate impact. So I've twisted his rubber arm in helping us out. He's been doling out some great advice, becoming a cohort advisor, kind of a co-advisor to the stuff that I do over there. It's been fantastic. He's got a great story. If you are a founder in the recruiting space, anything to do with HR, hiring people, or you're interested in, talking about how to build a company, and then specifically Tony had a recent exit. We're going to get into a few details on that. Or you're a founder that you want to hire a technical person and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I approach this? Especially in these current market conditions. We got this tech session going on. There's lots of different opinions. You want to be checking out this conversation. Say goodbye to expensive recruiting. We're going to get into this in just a moment, but Tony, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Ed. It's always good to hang out for a little bit.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into the TLDR. Let's give you some highlights, establish some credibility, brag on you a little bit. You recently exited a previous company. What happened? What do you want to share about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was originally a part of a traditional tech founding company. So, we basically placed developers, product designers, cloud infrastructure, place that into a traditional mold. After a while, I started realizing that there might be a better opportunity to do things I saw the climate was changing, the market was turning, and so there might be an opportunity to do things a little different. So, my partner and I right now had a conversation with our former partner, and we ended up negotiating an exit that we were able to use to, bootstrap Astrik as we see right now in its current form. So yeah, we're really excited to be moving off of a traditional model into something I think that's a little more needed right now.
Okay. And then you were, traditional recruiting company. You're doing the thing. Obviously, that was hot. There was a bubble for a little while. You start to read the tea leaves. You saw the signs. You had one of your partners bought you out, and you told me 7-figure exit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did pretty good, enough to get you to the next milestone, not enough to F you money. There's no F you.
No, we're a long way off from that, but yeah, definitely got us to the next stage for sure.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about that. How long were you doing your previous venture till you got to the point where you were out?
For almost 2 years.
Okay.
So really a lot changed in those 2 years, right? Everyone was hiring for technical roles right when the pandemic was happening. Things started bottoming out. You slowly started seeing the signs, and everyone was getting squeezed out. And so that's when it was, time to make a change.
And what were you doing before that? What's your background?
Yeah, so my background was enterprise sales. So I worked, I'm an old SaaS warhorse. So, traditional SaaS model. So a lot of it would be a hybrid of SaaS on-prem. So long sales cycles, working with multiple different, buying influences. And so, what I found is there's not much difference between working in a sales role and working in recruitment. I mean, if anything, it's sales on steroids, because you're pitching the client to the candidate, you're pitching the candidate to the client, and you're pitching yourself to both of them, right? So you've got to make sure that, you've got everyone happy. And so it becomes an additional layer of fun, as I would say.
Let me wrap it up with one more question about your exit.
Yeah.
What was the biggest lesson or aha that you learned that you think would be valuable to other founders that might be thinking in the same vein?
Yeah, I think what I would say for sure is always do your due diligence on whoever you're going to be working with, right? Do as much reference checking, deep dive, making sure it's a good fit, because you can align on certain values, but that only gets you so far. You still have to work with this person every day and whatnot. And that's not the case with this, but I've seen it so far, and especially with Astrik, my partner and I talk to him more than I talk to my girlfriend sometimes, right? So it's basically, you want to make sure, is this a person that's going to share your viewpoint And are you willing to not only work well together when it's good, but more importantly, when you hit the wall and there's times of stress, are you guys going to be able to work well to overcome it? So that's what I would say is just choose your partners wisely.
No, I agree 100%. There was a recent discussion post on startups.com, and it talked about what is the biggest mistake that you made that you regret. And one of the options was picking the wrong co-founder.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have been burned by that. And it was like super traumatic. One of the last startups that I exited, like emotional, complex post-traumatic stress disorder level, with all my past coming up. So totally agree. All right.
There's a reason why there's so many therapists with booked calendars.
No, agree 100%. So then just take any time off after you exited? Like, what'd you do?
No, it was just dive right into the next thing. I'll take a vacation sooner or later, but no, the other thing is as well is just the longer you wait in the market, the faster the market passes you by.
Sure.
Right. So, we made sure to take a little, time off here or there, but it was important to build on the momentum that we had going. Right.
Okay.
So, and it was a big risk as well. We were basically bootstrapping for the longest time.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't award you a lot of time off.
Sure. No, I get it. Let's get into your new venture. Okay. Astrik.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to expensive recruiting. All right. So what's the difference? You were in recruiting, and this,
Sure.
you say build dream teams with transparent staffing, recruiting that is up to 75% less than inflated agency fees. Sounds like you're taking a run at your old industry. Give me the scoop. What's the value proposition here?
Yeah. So Astrik, really what we're designing to do is we're focusing on helping early stage companies in particular really kind of help streamline the interview and the hiring process, making it more collaborative, more transparent, and most of all, most cost effective. And the way we're doing that is a couple of different ways. The first off is we have a set of interview productivity tools that we're going to be rolling out this summer. We're building them out, beginning into beta, but also what we have live right now, which is our talent marketplace. And it's designed to allow somebody, let's say you need a React developer. You just literally go to our site, you pick the role, you drop it in our cart, like a e-commerce, like you're buying a pair of boots on Amazon. And then literally what will happen is you'll get matched up with candidates that are going to fit your criteria, right? So I always say is think of it like eHarmony, but for hiring, right? Here's your role, here's your candidate, here are overlays. Important thing right now is that cost is top of everyone's mind. I don't care if you're a CRO or you are working, as a QA engineer within a company. Cost is the most important thing that's going on right now. It's top of mind. And as the industry and the market's changing, people just can't afford those exorbitant costs that would happen. I mean, old industry, without going to specifics, you could pay $25,000 to $30,000 to place one developer, and usually that's somebody scooping up resumes, handing them to you, Ed, and say, pick the one that you want, right? Give me my commission. And that's how recruiting was for the long time. And that's where I saw there's a huge opportunity to change that if we were to right price what recruiting and staffing were to look like, I think it's going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to allow affordability to everyone, right? So even if you're not a large Series D company or you're just starting out, you need help finding that right person. You don't know where to look. We're giving palatable options that are going to allow anybody to be able to bring on not only a hire fast, but the right one. Secondly, really what we're doing is we're trying to make the terms much more modern in the sense of that $30,000 you would owe in the traditional time frame. You pay it all up front. Usually it's due within 14 days of that hire, right? We offer subscription models that basically allow you and it incentivizes you to scale up your hiring plans and subsidize it over 12 months, right? So think of it like a SaaS fee. You pay it over 12 months. So now what happens is I know I'm going to hire a few people. I can take a more moderate hit over 12 months versus just paying a large course up front. So we're trying to make friendly, modern terms that anybody can afford.
Okay, that makes sense to me. let's just be super clear about this. Here, I'll take a look. You pointed out this webpage to me
Yeah,
on your site. Cut your hiring costs by 75%. Okay, so let's just talk cold turkey, and I got some other questions for you.
sure.
Are you able to cut costs by 75% because you're making less money, or you've made it more efficient? So you're going to make the same amount of money, but you're just making it more efficient and passing those savings on? Like, how does this actually work? It sounds too good to
Sure.
be true. Give us the lowdown.
And that's funny because the first people who ever think that this sounds like it's never going to work are from other recruiters, right? So that's usually my first clue is like, I might be onto something, right? My partner, I might be onto something. But the reality is, Ed, again, when I tell you that $30,000 that somebody brings in, that is somebody's commission coming into an agency for that could be 8 hours work, right?
Okay.
So the idea is that it's just way overinflated. So let's bring it down a lot more to make it a lot more friendly, right? So when we're talking about cutting it by 75%, that's what we're just saying is like, look, we're making the margins tighter for us, but they're also more realistic and more in line of what you're going to see with a SaaS business or a service, not the, huge markups where they're just collecting a lot more. So we will be creating automation as we continue to scale, and that will definitely help our efficiency rates. But right now, the concept is we're just right pricing for the market. And yeah, our margins are smaller, but we think that as the volume grows, based on what we believe is something that people are going to find appealing, it's going to pay off for us.
Recruiting before was a high margin, low volume game. And now you want to switch it up and go low margin, high volume. And in the end, you're going to be just successful.
Absolutely, right. And the idea is by having a candidate marketplace, we're not necessarily going out and searching for candidates that are going to be a match. We're bringing value to the candidates as well, that they want to be on our platform, right? So we have a set of tooling that's going to be coming out for them, including new ways to conceptualize their resume, new ways to track their job application progress with various points. We want our applicants to feel like the experience they're going to get working through Astrik's platform is why they want to be there. And as a result, when a client comes and says, I need a developer, we've got such a strong talent pool already there available that it's not about a search. It's about just literally matching the right people up, and thus the margin makes sense.
Okay. Let's go off the beaten path just for a bit here.
Yeah.
You're giving advice to a founder and they want to hire some technical people, but they're not going to use Astrik. They're not going to use a service. They want to do it themselves. What advice? And, I'm doing this because we've got a whole gamut of founders, people who will want to use a service, but others who want to do it themselves. And, we want to help everybody out. So what advice would you give to that founder who wants to do it all manually on their own?
Sure. So I think it starts with what degree of technical ability that they have. I've talked to some founders who they were coders by trade, and I've talked to some that, they've never, hit a keyboard ever. So I think it starts with their, initial comfort level with development in that language as well. I always say before you ever consider hiring like a CTO, because that's a popular question that I get from a lot of founders, what point do I bring a CTO on to help like design my MVP, my product, and whatnot? The reality is my position is it's not one size fits all, but I think that you don't necessarily have to bring on a CTO too early, because again, you're giving up equity, you're having to give up a lot of cost to bring somebody on, and most CTOs are, even at a reduced cost, are going to be six figures. What I say is you want to find some strategic talent that are going to help you build your MVP. So I would start with building really good design specs. And that starts with a good product designer before a developer, because a product designer, most people don't realize how important they are, right? A developer, really what they're doing is, they are tactical. They take the instructions that a founder creates and gives to the developer, and they execute, right? Whereas a product designer works with that founder and says, let's see your vision in your head. Let's get it out of your head. Let's bring it to life. So then that way we understand what the experience is going to be like. Then we give it to a developer and they bring it to life, right? Oftentimes what I see is a lot of founders that they will hire a developer and they'll build it out. And oftentimes it looks really, really good. But then what happens is the experience is really, really cumbersome, right? It's like basically saying, I built you a Lamborghini, but I don't know how to drive stick, right? So it's really helping them understand a good product designer, UX, UI early is going to help get the statement out of their head, the design out of their head, bring it to life. And then at that point, you start to transition over to developer. What we found the most successful is, what we call a pod, right? So if you can afford to bring on a designer and a developer at the same time, and they work together to help bring that vision to life, that really is the best of both worlds.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so one thing that we offer as well, it's been really exciting for a lot of people, is fractional services, right? So you've heard of fractional CTOs, fractional CROs. So we have fractional developers, fractional product designers, where, if you are on a tight budget, but you want to push your MVP slowly but surely, you can hire on people for just 10 hours a week, get to milestones, and then not do anything for another month until you get another round of money coming in, or you feel inspired to continue it on. The whole idea is there's a lot of flexibility founders can have. That doesn't mean like, if I need somebody to build something for me, it doesn't mean I have to commit to a full-time employee, benefits, all of that. You can get somebody moving your idea for as little as 10 hours a week.
Oh yeah, and it's true. Everybody out there is freelancing because they know their talent is in demand, and you've got lots of different choices. Let's talk about that. Where do I go find these people? Let's say, okay, I'm in. I want a developer and a designer. I'm not going to use a recruiter, all this stuff. Where should I go? Should I post something on LinkedIn, or like what's going on?
So the traditional model would always be something like Upwork, where you could easily bring somebody on, for a relatively inexpensive price. Or, if you're more open to using a international model, there's a lot of companies out there like the Bears Devs of the world where you can hire on talent, and they can do that as well. The challenge is this: not all developers, not all designers are created equal. What I've always found, think about this from a development standpoint. You have some developers where they're like, I'm more of an architect. I like to take ideas and I like to build it from the ground up and build it in my image, and it looks just like me, and it's a monument to my greatness. And then you have some that are like, nope, that's not me. I'm more of a grinded out ticket taker type guy. Give me, what's going on, what do I have to do for the sprint, and that's what I execute. So if I'm a new founder and I'm searching LinkedIn and I'm looking for a React developer, I could see two different resumes that say React developer. I'm like, they both look pretty good. They have the same skill set, but they're not created equal, right? So what I always advise, if you're going to try to do this yourself, is you want to make sure that you're asking probing questions on their development and design style to make sure it's going to match what you truly need. Because if you don't have the vision to deliver to them so they can execute, they're just going to take whatever you give them and they're going to produce exactly that. And so it's not like you're throwing your money away, but you're not getting the best bang for your buck.
So then how do we prevent getting ripped off? Like you see this happen time and time again. Founder goes off, they're putting their hard-earned money in developing something. And okay, dev shop is one thing. Maybe we can talk about that in a moment, whether we should hire dev shop or not. But let's say they find like an individual person somewhere, and the promises, like they're promising the world, I can do this and I can do that. And so you're supposed to ask some probing questions, but so many times it's disappointing. Like overpromise, underdeliver, and these founders don't know the questions to ask, right? You've got experience with it. So how are they going to learn these questions to make sure they're not getting totally bamboozled by this overpromise, under delivering situation we see all the time?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the $1 million question, that if somebody's really trying to do it on their own, I guess the easy answer these days is Chat GPT, right? To ask them, how do I not get ripped off by an individual contractor? But a lot of it is just you're going to have to educate yourself and really think about what you're going to have to learn to become your own project manager for a while, right? Is what milestones am I trying to achieve, and then make sure that I'm looping into that. One thing that I've always advised to anybody who is in that sort of situation is don't necessarily ever offer something hourly. Always offer something that's a project-based approach that you pay post, right? And the reason being that gives you some control over the quality that's being delivered, right? So if I say, Ed, I'm going to pay you $45 an hour and I need this done over 4 weeks, that's great, but it doesn't hold you to any standard as far as the quality of the work, versus we're going to do it where it's a project-based approach that's going to average 50 hours over the life of the project. It's going to be at X dollar. It's all deliverable, paid upon delivery, right? You are able to inspect it, make tweaks, and making sure where if it's just not meeting that expectation, that you're having conversations. The other thing as well that I see a lot of founders that fail or struggle is that they would hire somebody and then they don't check in with them at all. They just basically, they have, a lot of them have day jobs, or they have other parts of the business that they're focusing on, and they take these, they take the developer at their word that everything's, happening the way that it should. And then they're in for a pretty big shock when they get the big unveil at the end. Anything like this has to be a partnership, right? Regular check-ins, regular expectations, real-time feedback back and forth. So the expectation needs to be set with the developer or designer. When you create a new feature, I want to make sure that we're having time checking it, so then that way I can keep them on focus, right? So oftentimes when you see a lot of that failure, it's because you let them go off on their own and you didn't give them any sort of like parameters or accountability.
And that's the whole advice you give: learn to become a project manager. Like, I
Yeah,
learned that a long time ago. I'm a real laissez-faire. I don't like to micromanage,
sure.
but when you've got technical people and you're spending that money, you can't take anything for granted, especially if, let's say, the individual is in another country or a different culture, what have you. So then I'll actually bring on a project manager. If I don't want to do it myself, I will bring on a project manager. Say, your job is to watch this individual like a hawk, check in on a regular basis, and make sure we're hitting those milestones. So, just like you say, don't underestimate the value of a designer, a UX UI person. I also say don't underestimate the project manager who keeps things on track.
Absolutely. And project managers at this stage, for most early stage founders, it's a luxury, right? And
Mm,
so you're right. You have to basically task yourself with that role to make sure, because you're the one writing the checks. You're the one with the skin in the game. So you want to make sure it's meeting your vision, right?
yeah.
So yeah, you can't just write a check and then go off and doing your other things and just come back 4 weeks later and hope for the best.
Okay. What do you think about dev shops then? I don't want to hire someone. I don't want to do it. I just want it all in one package. This dev shop's giving me a really great pitch. They seem to have all the resources under one roof, track record of success. They even tell me they're going to introduce me to investors and all that
Sure.
stuff. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think dev shops are inherently bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think that just like if you were evaluating any product, it's all about you doing your due diligence as a founder. So, in my experience, I want to see numerous examples of work. I want to be able to see, referrals. I want to be able to like dig deeper into SLAs, guarantees, things like that. Is education becomes really top of mind. Oftentimes these dev shops are on, sites like G2. And so people want to give their feedback, particularly when it's less than favorable, right? Statistics always say when you're happy, but when you're angry, you tell everyone, right? So usually if a dev shop is not hitting that mark, they're going to put that information on there. And then one thing I always recommend as well, and people are surprised to do this, I want to interview who's going to be doing the actual dev work for me one-on-one before I fully hire them on. And the types of questions that I would ask is, how many different projects are you working on at the same time? What's the average length of project that you work on? How much turnover do you see? Right?
Mm.
Questions like that to give you a lot of idea of like what the environment is like. Because what the dev shops don't tell you is that oftentimes they might have 2, even 3 projects that this person is working on, which is not a terrible thing. But if they're committing 40 hours a week, they're supposed to be a full-time role, and then they are turning them over to do another 20 somewhere else. Obviously, fatigue is going to set in. 60 hours a week, a long time. So you really want to understand, is this person fully dedicated to me? Are they doing any sort of other moonlighting? What kind of like work SLAs are you going to provide? And then like, show me examples, show me the proof, and then give me my outs, right? You combine that with the idea of I'm checking in as my own project manager every 2 weeks. In the first 2 weeks I come in there and my expectations aren't being met, I'm not having a conversation with the developer per se. I'm having a conversation with the dev shop and saying like, this is not fitting what I'm envisioning. How can we turn this around? You give them another 2 weeks. If it's not happening, then you start looking at like, I don't know if this is the right partner for me, but you want to catch it early and not after you've exhausted 80% of your contract.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. My advice, and I use dev shops and I also hire in-house. Like I'll use a combination. I will not hire a dev shop unless the person who is managing, who has the authority to make decisions, will act like, even just pretend to be a technical co-founder with me, who will have that conversation, who understands what an MVP is
Sure.
challenging me. Do you really need that feature versus, oh, sure, yeah, we can build it. Let's add the AI and the bells and whistles and put it on a blockchain and all those things. They have to show me that they're willing to sit on my side of the table before I'll even start the conversation about working with them.
No, absolutely. Again, it's about skin in the game. And then, the big question becomes a lot of these dev shops and I go back and forth on this, is they will take this on for a portion of equity, right? That's a huge investment for a founder to give up, right?
Yeah.
So, it depends on the degree of investment and what you're going to purely get out, but if I'm giving up to 1% equity to build an MVP and the MVP is not meeting my expectation, then you've already set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, totally. And it's so hard to bring on other people. If you start off on the wrong foot, step one, and you build a crappy foundational product, to get someone to come in and want to build on top of that, it's an uphill battle for sure. Okay. So we've given the advice for the DIY founder out there. Now, I can't think of anything, but let's do this exercise. Let's steel man the case to still use recruiters. I don't like using recruiters. I don't want to use a recruiter. I don't plan to use a recruiter, but what would be the reasons? Let's just think about this for a moment to use a recruiter.
I think there's actually quite a few valid reasons to still use recruiters. Yeah. So one is, there are jobs out there that still need to be filled. When we've had these economic downturns, who are the first people to get eliminated, right? Usually it was internal recruiting teams, right? Because if you're going on a hiring freeze and you're not bringing people in, it just 2 + 2 = 4. You don't need that talent anymore. So now you've got a lot of displaced talent in the marketplace. So now you think about it this way, right? You streamlined your team. Maybe you even streamlined your development team. The most overworked person in most orgs is the engineering manager, because they're usually hands on keyboard. They're managing their team. They're working with upper level management. And now they're also tasked with hiring, right? So now they've got this additional responsibility that they didn't ask for, that they're being tasked with. So the idea is, if you find the right recruiter who can be a partner, a recruiter that doesn't charge you so much, they can basically become a de facto extension of your hiring team, right? So that's one use case. Other one as well is, you think about the early stage founders. You hit the nail on the head. They don't know necessarily what questions to ask. So it really comes down to a good recruiter who specializes in early stage businesses and not working with the fangs and all of that, becomes somebody like, hey, look, in my experience, when you're at this stage, I think you should be considering these types of questions. What kind of technical stack am I using? Do I need a mobile app? And at what point, at what stage? What is the UX UI going to look like? At what point am I going to bring a developer on? Who's going to be QAing it? Where is this going to be hosting, right? You start bringing these questions out, and the founders like, I'm not sure. A good technical recruiter can guide them through that and help them navigate some of the pitfalls and set up for success and find the right partner where you might eventually say, this hire that I made, I can groom them into my CTO because they've had skin in the game. They know the product, they know the mission. I want to be able to move them up, right? So those are just a couple of reasons why I still think good recruiters can be valuable. Now, again, it comes down to ROI, right? If you're spending $30,000 per hire, doesn't make sense. But if you get to a place where you're paying significantly less, then it really becomes a good value. Now, one thing I'll point out is we have a subscription model that I told you about as well. The one nice thing about a subscription model is it level sets the playing field.
Sure.
We become the partner with you because we're flat rate regardless. So it doesn't matter to us if a salary is X or Y, we're your partner no matter what, right? One big dislike of recruiters is they keep inflating the candidate's price so they can get a bigger commission. We don't do that, right? If it's flat rate, it's irrelevant. We just want you to fit the right people in the place. So it's all about becoming an extension and a partnership where people have that, they don't have the bandwidth or availability.
Okay, I could argue, you know what? You've convinced me on the one point. Like if I'm paying 30,000 commission, but they're giving me $30,000 of strategic value by advising me. If I'm in one of those situations, let's say I've got a budget of $30 million. If, I need the right hire and someone's willing to advise me, and it's almost like the consulting fee, and it's based on, can you place the right person? Okay, I can see that. The other thing I can see is if there's key relationships, because, recruiters will know people. So if that recruiter can get me to someone very specific for whatever reason I may need to bring in, like I'm the New York Jets and I want to bring in Aaron Rodgers because, we need to set a new culture and get everything going. We want to go for a win now mode. Okay. Knowing the recruiter that gets me access to Aaron Rodgers, that could be a benefit. That's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely, but it should also not kneecap you, right? And that's the one thing is like, yeah, the Jets brought on Aaron Rodgers, but they paid a lot for it. And we'll see if the value is going to be there.
Yeah.
But, the other thing that we do from a recruiting standpoint, and this is something that I feel even stronger about than just the recruiting, is nearshore staffing. So, part of what I did with my previous organization is we staffed up with engineers, designers, and developers out of Brazil. And huge advantage there for especially a lot of early stage companies where they can get talent down in Brazil that are senior level engineering lead, God tier like talent at a fraction of the price. They're English speaking, massive overlap, high quality as far as output. That's what Astrik uses for all of our talent. We use everyone down in Brazil. And so it's a great option to bring people on at a low cost. And you have flexible rates, right? You say, I only want somebody for 6 months, 12 months. That's great. Now you don't have to worry about payroll taxes. You don't have to worry about insurance, which I'm a early stage founder. I don't like writing those checks every month, even though it's my health insurance. I still don't like writing a check for it, right? So it's one thing that I think more and more companies are going to consider. Going along as well, though, with what we talked about from a recruiting standpoint, we've also added a lot of right pricing and transparency around our talent in Brazil, right? So if you go to Bears Dev, top tall, they're charging $65, $70 an hour. The developer only gets about 25. They're keeping like $40 to $45 for themselves. Wow. Our flat rate right now, introductory, $39, right? So that gives a lot of flexibility to a company to bring somebody on. And again, people go, why are you so cheap? Again, we're not trying to be low price. We're just trying to be right price to realize people still need developers. They just don't have the appetite to pay $70 anymore.
And out of that 39, what are you giving to the
Yeah,
worker?
so yeah, it's usually 75% of that goes right to the contractor itself. So we only keep, a moderate, 20 to 25% rate for ourselves for the fees, taxes, everything else like that. Everything goes directly to the recruiter or
And I
the
can imagine they're so much happier to pay that because they're not going to get access to work otherwise doing it themselves. So you're like their agent, sports agent for them. And on top of which, you were telling me the other day, we are discussing it, and it made a lot of sense because, you're telling me it's a minimum 3-month commitment. I was like, for a full-time employment, like there'd be
yeah,
nobody in the States that would sign on for a
yeah.
3-month commitment. Like you're
Right.
talking at least a year. But tell me your response. Like, what is it about the market that allows us to do that?
Yeah, so Brazil is actually a very, very interesting market when it comes to employment law. About 90% of the talent down in Brazil work on short-term contracts. And the reason being is there's such heavy taxation to companies both abroad and in Brazil to hire somebody as a permanent employee, that most people avoid that by just making them contractors. And so oftentimes it's 3 months to 12 months is the average. And then they move from job to job. So when a lot of people go, well, this developer looks really talented, but he's had 7 jobs in 7 years. That's just how the market dictates, and it kind of creates that. So it gives a lot of flexibility where you say, I just need somebody for 3 months to nail this project down. It's a lot easier to find that, and then they just go on and find their next role.
Yeah. So it's built in. We're not messing with their system or quality of life. It's just built in.
No,
They're used to it.
no. And they crave working for North American companies. They've been groomed that way in school to understand how it's to work with North American companies. They love to contribute. They have vision as well. All the developers and designers we have at Astrik, we basically charge them to say, how do you want to design this? How do you want this product to look like? So when you look at our website, you look at all our product tools, that's all output from our team in Brazil. But again, we're checking in daily with them. We have an engineering stands up. We're making sure that the expectations being met, and man, they usually deliver.
Okay. So walk me through. Let's put me in a situation where I'm a founder. I need to hire. I don't want to do it myself. I don't want to work
Sure.
with a recruiter. I don't want to use a dev shop. But at the same time, I've never worked with a company like Astrik. All right. What should I expect? How are you going to hold my hand? How are you going to make me feel totally comfortable and confident that
Yeah.
I made the right decision? Tell me the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So we try to make it as frictionless as possible. Literally, you come to our website, you pick the role that you're trying to fill. So in this example, we'll use a React developer. You drop it in a shopping cart, and then you select, do I want them for 6 months, 12 months, or do I want a US placement? You pick what you want, and then you just pay a $99 deposit because we want everyone to have some skin in the game. Literally from there, what happens is you enter your credit card information, you've made your deposit. From there, you're going to be receiving an onboarding flow that basically says, tell us about your company, tell us about your role, tell us about your hiring process, right? If you're an early stage company, then we do more hand holding to kind of drive out more of the vision and say, let's flesh out where you're at with your MVP, where you're at with your budget, what are you looking to do, right? So we do more like what we call co-piloting services, where we will basically do more hand holding. But if you are just like, I just need a developer, literally you fill out the onboarding, our algorithm isn't going to match the top 3 to 5 candidates, present them to you. It's going to go, all right, Ed, here is Jane, Tony, and Mary. You look at them and go, you know what? I like Jane and Mary. That Tony, I don't trust his eyes. He just doesn't seem right to me. You can literally say, I'd like to meet them. Well, Mary and Jane, they get a notification that says, hey, Ed's interested in meeting you too. Then we do what's called Expresso, EXPRESSO. You both get to meet for 10 minutes, and it's just to shoot the shit, more or less, to see if it's a good fit personality wise, because studies have shown the reason why people don't stay at jobs, it's not so much for the technical piece, it's more about the interpersonal, the soft skills, the experience piece. And what's wrong with the hiring process and the interview process is, when do you usually do the culture piece? The last interview at the end of a very, very long stage where you meet a CFO, CTO, and they go, just checking a box. Here, Ed, you get to meet this candidate 10 minutes. You get to ask questions and meet her. At the end of it, you can both decide, do I want to do a formal interview? Yes or no. He does the same thing. You guys agree. And then what we do is we coordinate the scheduling, and then we do progressive scoring. So Ed, you interview Mary. You're like, I really liked her answers on this, this, and this. Not so sure on this. We have a progressive score that's going to go up, down. It's going to adjust and think based on your answers. We feel like she's a stronger candidate. Based on the answers to this other person, he's down. So somebody who could be here after interviews could be flipped, right? And then through each stage, is this somebody you still want to consider hiring? You both have to confirm it. There's mechanisms in place to make sure you're not ghosting each other. And then you follow that way all the way through offer. So it's very measured throughout the process. We do a lot of reaffirming to make sure, is this the right person for you? Is this the right salary you're willing to offer? Both ways, because we want hiring to be very collaborative. We want the candidate to be just as invested as the employer to make sure, do you want to work here? Does the salary still make sense? Do you have any red flags? Any reason why you wouldn't want to work here? And that feedback goes back and forth. And I think that's how we've already seen such a steady candidate adoption into our marketplace, is people realize we're advocating for them just as much as we advocate for any of our clients.
You really have systematized it. It's kind of like combining like Upwork with, or Fiverr with recruiting. You've kind of Upworked recruiting, because you can get talent on Upwork, but you don't get to go through that vetting process and that guided flow like you just described, which is so key.
Yeah, like I said, we're calling it, eHarmony, but for hiring, because I always liked how that flow ever worked. And it makes it very laid out and systematic where you can see that. And it's matching the right person, and not just the person who had the most experience, right? I think the fundamental flaw that I would say a lot of founders get stuck on is, I need somebody that has X amount of years of experience. Big no-no, right? I painted for almost 20 years and I still suck at painting. I've only played chess for 2 or 3 years and I got really good really fast. So I always say is, think about it that way from a development standpoint. Somebody can say, yeah, I've worked with React for 10 years, but how good are you truly at it, right? Did you truly work part of the code, or did you work on a project where you're ancillary? People are people. Human nature says we're going to inflate that. So we want to go deeper than just the years of experience to find true fits.
Yeah, no, that's good. You also said you've added other dimensions to that fit, like the soft skills. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So what we've done is we're basing it on like, IO, industrial psychology, soft skills. So essentially what we're doing is, part of your onboarding as a client is going to be looking at what are the soft skills that you're going to find to be the most successful in roles like this. And then it will overlap towards the personality assessments that our candidates take, right? So somebody can be really, really good at dealing with ambiguity, but they struggle in small team environments that require a lot of hands-on approach. So again, think about it this way. If I'm an early stage founder, oh, this person looks perfect. But this person might say, you know what? I don't like working in an early stage company. They scare me. I only want to work in Series D or above. So it's not a good fit, right? Versus, finding somebody who says, yeah, I love the unknown every day, kind of doing different things. Those are the ones that are going to be the better fit for you versus somebody who needs structure and rigidity.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it reflects value systems, having value alignment leads to culture alignment, just makes so much, I think, so much easier in the long term. And so that's what you're factoring in. So yeah, I've never used eHarmony, so I don't know,
Yeah, I mean, long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're telling me that eHarmony had more of a systematic flow
Correct.
and a process versus, here are your matches, give them a call, talk to them,
Yeah,
see what happens.
it's all personality based.
Gotcha.
And then you see a matrix. So we will present you with a matrix and not necessarily a resume, right? Because that's why people hate recruiters. I told you earlier, you need a developer, all right, here's a stack of resumes. Go through them. What do is I see this all the time right now. I see a lot of companies on LinkedIn, they need a React developer and on their jobs. And I look, and they have over 500 applicants.
Yeah.
So remember that engineering manager I told you about? That poor he or she now has to go through and comb through 500 resumes to find even somebody who's suitable. So what do? You usually pick the top 10 because I'm not going to have the time to go through. So you lose true diamonds in the rough, right?
Yeah.
We will curate it for you and present you the scorecard on their personality and their skill set versus a resume and say, here's their strengths, here's their opportunities, here's how they overlap with you.
Yeah. What's the future for Astrik and AI?
So, AI, obviously it's a big buzzword. AI is never going to fully replace people. I think AI can make you more efficient at your job, but it's always going to require human oversight. So, our algorithm, obviously, there's a degree of machine learning that goes into it. And right now, a lot of it is still manual as we're in the early stages, which is a lot of seasoned people that we have from the recruiting industry who are interpreting that. You need a human baseline before you can really truly determine what an algorithm is going to say. What I see it for us is we're never fully going to give it over to AI. There will always be human oversight that's going to support the efforts, right? AI is going to help us scale, but it's never going to be taking the lead on anything from sales gen to recruiting to customer satisfaction.
Okay. 2 more questions.
Yeah.
What's the future? What's your vision? Like if you had, how is the world different? If Astrik, you and your co-founder, you pull off what you're going to do and you hit all the milestones, what's the vision? How has the world changed because Astrik is in existence and it's successful?
I'd like to think of that. It's going to make smarter, longer lasting, happier hires for everyone, right? I think at the end of the day, that's what we're after is if we can streamline and make the interview process better, we think that you're going to have better hires, better culture fits, people who are going to contribute and want to stay longer. I think it's going to arm and it's going to educate those who frankly just don't know what they're doing to make better decisions. And I think hopefully if we did this right, we've disrupted a stale industry that says, imitation is the best form of, flattery. We start seeing more people popping up with similar models. That tells us maybe we did something right.
Are recruiters going to go extinct? What do you think?
Never. No, I think that there will always be that model for it. Whether internal or external, I think we can fit in that sweet spot and coexist with everyone. I don't ever want to put anyone out of a job, but I do think that the industry is ready to take on something that's a little bit different.
Okay. Last word from you.
Yeah.
Tony, you are incredibly generous. This is what attracted me to you is just how generous you are in terms of you aren't trying to come get clients. You genuinely wanted to contribute to community, and I totally appreciate that about you. What would you like to say to the founders at startups.com or any founders in terms of an invitation to come talk to you? How approachable are you? Give us the invitation.
Absolutely. If you're on startups.com and you have any questions, I consider myself a jack of all trades generalist. So, anything from pitch deck creation to elevator pitches to, design work, I can certainly give, insights with that. I love to chat. I love to talk. So hit me up on Slack, send me an invitation, the platform, and then happy to share my Calendly with you and just, network and see how we can help each other. But, yeah, I just love to meet people and I want to see people succeed. And if I can just be even 1/10 of a part of that, just helping you succeed, I don't want to be a king. I'd rather be a king maker and just be behind the scenes helping people succeed. And, even if it's one question, happy to help.
You're a man after my own heart, Tony. What I'm going to do is include all of Tony's LinkedIn and just the website in the description for this video, and we'll circulate that around. Tony, can't thank you enough, not just for this talk, and I've learned a few really great nuggets, but just the relationship so far and how you've contributed to our community. Once again, appreciate you spending the time, Tony.
All right. Thank you so much.